Welcome to Adventure Island, just a thing I'm trying out. We'll see how this goes. But today I was turned on to something that I guess I've been sleeping on for a while, which is Advent of Code. Thank you, Eric Wassel, for making this really cool project. 25 days of puzzles, two puzzles each day, an A side and a B side, as it were, leading up to the Christmas holiday. So this is a lot of fun for we nerds, and I thought it might be nice to have some resources out there for people to compare their answers with others, maybe work through it in different languages. So, like I said, today we're just gonna try and figure it out. I'm starting with the 2021 Advent of Code. I'm gonna do the first day because in about 1 hour the 2022 first day of Advent of Code comes out. So, without further ado, we're going to jump into it. Let's see what this puzzle is all about. So I did this one. I did this one a little bit earlier today, but wanted to kind of talk about some stuff and just see what it was like to put it on a recording and see how it goes. So let's work through kind of the stuff that I did. So I've got my folder structure set up here. I just am keeping all of my source documents here, and you can go find it on GitHub at Ben the Wolf slash Adventure Island. I'll put the link in the description. So let's get to it. Day one, sonar sweep. You're minding your own business on a ship at sea when the overboard alarm goes off. You rush to see if you can help. Apparently, one of the elves tripped and accidentally sent the sleigh keys flying into the ocean. Anyways, you want to go get those keys. Skipping ahead. As the submarine drops below the surface of the ocean, it automatically performs a sonar sweep of the nearby ocean floor. On a small screen, the sonar sweep report, which becomes our puzzle input, appears. Each line is a measurement of the seafloor depth as the sweep looks further and further away from the submarine. For example, suppose you had the following report. This guy. So what we're going to end up doing is we want to figure out for each recording from the sonar, we want to see whether the depth is increasing or decreasing. So our question here that we'll drop in is going to be how many measurements are larger than the previous measurements. Well, I have to log in here to play. Let me do that quickly. Okay, so the first step is we have to go get our input. Where's our input file? Okay, so here's the input. I've been spending a lot of time kind of working in NodeJS. That's what we're going to be doing today. But one thing that I've been liking to turn these into is turning them into JSON. So let me show you how I've been doing that recently. So I'm going to put it in a source document, source.json. I just copy and paste that. Then I'm going to go all the way up to the top here. And I'm going to do a find and replace. Open it up for the replace, add the wildcard because I'm looking for this thing, a new line, and which you can see gets me the end of the line. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a comma in that same new line. So then I'm going to replace all here. Then I have the comma. Oh, you know what would have also worked? Probably. I guess I don't know how to do this in VS Code. I'm also learning VS Code, but I could have done maybe Alt and select. Nope. Looks like that's not it. It's Alt and select in Notepad++ to make a vertical selection, but maybe I'll look that up after the video and have it in the next one. We'll see. So anyways, we're most of the way here to a valid JSON doc, but we need opening brackets and closing brackets to turn it into a nice JSON array. I've been using this treatment a lot recently. Alt-Shift-F will format that as JSON. It's not really that important. But sometimes if you're doing a little more complicated input document, then this is a handy thing because it'll show you where your syntax might be broken. So then let's head over to our document. So let's get started by including the file system so that we can grab this source doc that we just pulled up. So I'm going to require the file system module, and then all it takes after that, I think, is looking for read file sync here. We could do it the asynchronous way, but I find that that's just more overhead than I need. And I'm going to go with that source.json file. One thing that I found is it's really helpful to specify the file encoding when you're doing that. And then the next thing that I do okay, so there's the full data, and let's kind of make I think there's 2,000 rows in this full data, so let's just work with a small data set to get started here. So I'm going to call that short data. So we're going to take full data, slice it to just get the first 10 elements. Let's console log that out using the table. Just make sure we're headed in the right direction so far. Let's run. All right, looking good so far. So what we want to know is whether we're increasing or decreasing for each of these items in the array. So what we're going to need to do is compare each entry to the one before it. There's going to be just a couple of tricks with that. Based on my first reading of this question, I kind of was very by the book and just replicated each step that they talk about in the question. So that's what we'll do here, or in the puzzle. That's what we'll do here as well. One thing I found that I wanted to do and wish that I had not was set this here so I can use that data variable throughout and only have to change my data source one place. So that was a good learning from earlier. Let's see, there's our data. So we want to know whether the second entry is bigger than the first. So let's just do a standard for each bucket. So I was also finding Control Shift spacebar is a hotkey to get the parameter hints up. So it looks like value and index for the callback function. All right, so for each, we're going to want to get the previous value. So we'll grab the index -1 there. So I guess we're going to want to make sure that we're not the first. All right. Let previous so the previous data is right there, and then we just want to do our comparison. This value is greater than previous. Let's make a little place to hold our results. So we're gonna stuff that with a push. Looks like we'll put increased in there. Oh, and we need a counter as well. Sorry if those semicolons are driving people bonkers. I came of age in coding at a certain time when everything needed to be semicolons. That was the fashion, and now it's like really hard for me to get on board with this no semicolons stuff that we're doing now. Maybe someday. All right, we got to increase that counter. If you're not using this console table, I had only run into that a few days ago. I had always used console log for everything, but just knowing that there's other methods inside of the console object was just a revelation for me. So if you're not using that, get on board. It presents some really nice formatting for you, very readable. So we're looking for output array. And let's do our increased counter. So let's see what that looks like, just giving that a rip. Oh, okay. That's 7 because we didn't do an else statement, which we don't actually need. But we'll just put it there then. Um, just to fill it out. One other thing to notice here is that because we skipped that first index and the very first index has no previous sum to compare it to, we only have 9 items in this array, as you can see, even though we started with 10. And from checking that out, looks good because we have increased, 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 decreased, increased, increased, decreased, increased, increased. Looks good. That is 7 out of our 9 possible items. So let's see. Now we can head back to this short data and put in our full data. And hopefully we'll get the same thing. Let's not bother with this console logging anymore. See what we get. Ooh, made a mistake. All right, so welcome back. Uh, the problem wasn't my coding, the problem was my reading. So here we go. We jumped to part two, and we did get 1766, which is our answer here. Okay, so let's move on to this second bit, part two. So basically, they have a set where, hey, it seems like we should take a sum of all of these groups, of these three adjacent depth groups, and then compare those. So instead of just comparing the first to the second, we'll be comparing the sum of the first three to the sum of the next three. So one of the things one of the things that I did, or one of the things that I thought about doing, was just instead of making an array, make an array of arrays, and then we could run through a map or for each and make all the sums. But then I was thinking, oh, that's kind of just too complicated. What I could do instead is keep track of the total and subtract the one that I lost and add the new one, right? So your first group is all of these three, right? Your next group is going to be subtract 199 and add 210, and that will give you the group B, and so on and so forth. So that was the strategy that I took. Once I was kind of done writing that all up, I came up with a different strategy, and we'll see if we can get there. So what I'm going to do is just copy this file and make a new one for us. Part two. All right, so we're gonna use much of the same code because where we're gonna land is gonna be here, right? We're gonna make the same kind of table that we did before, but we're gonna do it now. Um, we need an intermediary table, right? The sums table. So I'm gonna head back here with the short data. Let's give that a run and see that we have our data correct here. Looks good. So there's 7 increases. So let's start building our sums table. So the first thing we're going to need, or the first thing I will want, is a sums table. Like I talked about earlier, let's do the total. Let's start it at 0. Okay, so for each data, we're going to want to build out our sums table. So for the first one, we're not going to do anything because we don't have enough groups. For the second one, we're not going to do anything. So for the third, let's go with if, what's it? If index is greater than 1 to get our third item. Let's so let's examine this pattern, right? So I need to get, so if I'm here in this new one, I need to remove this. So that's 1, 2, 3 prior from this index. Let's go with third previous. That is data x minus 3. It's not going to work for the first one, right? So let's put in a condition there. If index equals 2, then what do I do? Minus 0. Let's see how that comes out. Okay, so total is going to be the total minus the previous third plus value. All I need to do is just store the total in this sums array, which we're going to push. So let's do an intermediate here. Just to make sure we're in good shape. I think we will be. We're gonna have to pad our starting value there. So let's figure that out in a minute. Well, let's see how we're doing so far. All right, so we see that we lost 2 extra elements in the sums table. And we have 142 142, 151, 154, which probably if we ran this, we'll talk about this later, I think. But probably if we ran this, we'd actually get the right answer anyways. Let's see if that's true. Just quickly. We'll switch over to the full data. Just give it a run. $17.66, which is not not the right answer because we ran through the data table, but we want the sums table. 1797. So maybe you already see why that is the right here, 1797. You may already see why that's the right answer, regardless of this work. But just to make sure that this sums table is actually what it says it should be, we just need to pad the beginning accurately. So if we look at the short data, we have 134, 138, 142. All summed together should be 300, 360, just over 400 and something. So what are we gonna do for that very first for that very first sum? So this is index number 2. We're going to go in here. We're going to start with previous value. That's going to be artificially set to 0. And then so we're going to take the total and we're going to minus 0, but we're going to add this value, 142. So what we want to take is, let's see, 134 plus, oh, I can just do it right here. What am I doing? 134 plus 138 plus 142. But the first thing that it's going to do is add that 142, so we don't want that. Let's see if we get where we need to go by running this. Okay, let's see the sums as well. So our first set is 414. And then you have 137, 280, 423. Good. So that is looking right. So we just needed to get this padding right at the beginning so that our sums are actually correct. So we can go through here and close out this. And we'll look at the sums and we'll run it. So as we know, we already got the right answer. And we got that even before we had the correct sums in the code. And the reason we were able to get that actually talks about an interesting pattern, right? So some of you have probably already seen it through the video, but throughout these questions, it doesn't really actually matter much what the sum is. It doesn't matter at all what the sum of this A group is versus the sum of this B group. It really just comes down to a comparison between this number that's leaving and this number that's entering. So if the fourth index value is larger than the first index value, then it's going to be increased. So what we could actually do is run through this item for the fourth item and up, and just compare it to 4 ago, and we could actually make our table here at the end. We could actually jump right to this increased or no change. So let's try and do that real quick. Just to see if we get the same answer, see how quickly we can do it. Later in this series, I would like to see if we can come up with some very kind of out of the box solutions to some of these. Do it the strangest way, basically Oh man, all I can think of is Rorschach test, but that's not right. Uh, Maybe the name will come to me, but a mousetrap where we do things a very strange way. So let's see. My hypothesis here is we can get rid of a whole bunch of this stuff. So we don't actually need a sums table, and we don't need to know the sum. We can just run through our initial data. And we are going to be looking for, we know the first set isn't going to have anything to compare it to. So we're looking to start with the second set, which is the fourth index. So above 3. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to see if val is greater than is, we will just push to the output array. Increase our counter. I think that will actually get it done. Increase. There's 4 items. Let's see. I'm 1796. I'm one under. Gotta be the first or the last, right? Let's throw a little debug on this and see what happens. Some index is 0, that's 134. Index is 1, that's 138. Index is 2, that's 142. Oh, okay. So that's our first sum. Our first sum that we need. But that's going to have no previous sum. So here we are, 142. Okay, so here's the first time we're going to enter our if statement with 143, which we should find. Oh. That was easy. So that's correct. That's 5. So I'm much happier with this solution, which is very short and actually examines kind of the pattern more in detail, versus just kind of replicating the question how I would do it in person. So, anyways, thank you very much for joining this inaugural episode of Adventure Island. Thanks for joining me. Feel free to leave your solution in the comments. Tell me what I missed. What maybe we can go even easier or more simplified than this. I'm sure that we can. So let me know. And I will look forward to talking to you in 2 minutes. So I get to head over to the new puzzle for 2022. See you then.